everyone. My name is Onyeka Ilo. I would introduce our moderator, Julie Brisky, and she will take it on from there. Julie Brisky is a Senior Director, Talent Initiatives, Toronto Financial International, TFI. Julie leads TFI's talent research and multi-stakeholder initiatives that help to align the strategies of employers, educators, and government to expand the pool of in-demand, work-ready talent available to the financial services sector in the Toronto region. She is the architect and project leader of TFI Cybersecurity Talent Strategy to measurably increase the Toronto region cybersecurity talent pool for financial services through targeted investments. The first project, a cyber talent needs assessment, the changing phases of cybersecurity, closing the cyber risk gap, completed in partnership with Deloitte, is available now. Julie has over 20 years of human resource leadership experience, specializing in talent management and organizational development across multiple industries, including technology, financial services, and healthcare. Please welcome Julie Brisky.
Thank you. Thank you for the kind introduction. And welcome to all of you. Thanks for coming in from the coffee. This is an important conversation and an important part of the puzzle. We hear a lot about the talent shortage, and we've placed a lot of emphasis on early talent and opportunities for reskilling workers from other industries and other backgrounds. But we can't forget about the very strong skills and experience that we have within our sector already, and the effort that we need to do to make sure that we retain these skills. I'm excited to be on the panel today, and we've got some terrific panelists with us. I'd like each of them to introduce themselves, and if you can tell us your name, the role that you're in, the organization that you're with, and tell us a little bit about your career journey. What has led you to the role that you have within security today? Brian, let's start with you.
All right. Thank you very much, Julie. So quite many people already know me. So my name is Brian Lee. I'm the founder of Cyber Tech and Risk and also Cyber Career Center. What I'm doing, as you know, three things. One is the cyber industry collaboration. A lot of times means the events and the conference, and also the training and the career development. Back to your question, how did I start the cyber journey? I was a developer for many, many years. Then climbed the corporate ladder, become a project manager, then manager, director of innovation, product development. At a certain point, we developed a security product. And at that time, because we need to sell that product to major clients, they ask us to do the third-party risk assessment, security assessment. So that's my starting point. One is looking at the product, the other is looking at our own security assessment. That triggered me a lot of interest. Eventually led me to the cybersecurity industry. Yeah.
Thank you. Camille?
Good morning, everyone. Camille Zakarski from RBC. I lead identity and access management engineering and support. My teams are accountable for delivering IAM services to the enterprise. And my path started a long time ago. Similar to Brian's, actually, in software development. I became interested in cybersecurity very early on, and it's developed since then. So primarily experience in higher education, telecom, and then financial services over the past few years. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Vanessa Tillis. I'm the Director of Security Partnerships for Scotiabank's Information Security Department. I started my career about 10 years ago. I was 12, and I worked actually in information security. I was a summer student that the summer just never ended for me. We were working on an in-house software system to track software renewals, and I was in charge of inputting manual data into those software systems. It was riveting, absolutely. And then I migrated into the vendor management space, specifically focused on information security vendors within the department. And a few years later, I was promptly poached, I'd say, by the vendor management enterprise team within our organization. So I ended up working with relatively large IT strategic vendors and managing those relationships. And then about a year and a half ago, we got an injection of positions, and they created this Director of Security Partnerships role, with the focus being on relationships, which made sense. So it was a good transition for me from the vendor management side back into the security side. So I now manage all academic partnerships within the department, which in turn leads me to doing a lot of curriculum input, a lot of liaisoning with academic institutions to look at resource gaps within research and resource gaps within workforce. So we end up working with co-ops, internships, and that's a lot of it.
Great. And last, bringing up the rear here, is MJ Coldridge. I am director at the Canadian Centre, sorry, it's a mouthful, Canadian Cyber Threat Exchange. I'll refer to it as the CCTX going forward. But if you were in the main presentation this morning, you heard a lot of references to an important angle of addressing cybersecurity through sharing. Well, that's what we are. We are Canada's threat collaboration hub. We have an important role and are partnered with the federal government, and to be that sharing platform for all organizations across Canada. We cannot fight this battle alone, so our platform is enabled to bring everyone together, and I'm proud to say that my colleagues sitting up here are all members of the CCTX, and I see many faces out in the audience who are also members of the of our team and community as well. So, and kudos to everybody for being here on a Saturday. This is just awesome to see. My career started out with many years at IBM, in both in Canada as well as in global roles. The last area was in workplace services, which really ended up being anything to do with the endpoint, which naturally migrated over into the cybersecurity space because that is a key entry point for as a backdoor. Then I went to work in the startup industry. I wanted to find that experience and learn what that whole industry of funding and new technologies and being very nimble. Worked for several startups both in the United States and Canada before joining the CCTX about 18 months ago. And I am passionate about bringing new technologies to make our decision making better. I'm passionate to promote distributed architectures, especially around identity management. And I'm also passionate about sharing because it's the only way we're really going to be efficient at fighting this.
All right, thank you. Quite an interesting variety of backgrounds and experiences. I think we've all had the summer that never ended, if not the job that never ended. I'm going to get up and move. Just to work the technology. I want to anchor us a little bit in a framework that will help guide our discussion. So back in 2018, Toronto Finance International partnered with Deloitte to do a research report on cyber talent to get us a little bit deeper into the question of where the skill shortages were. What came out of that report is a talent framework that suggests that there are 7 basic personas in cybersecurity that helps us when we think about cyber talent, cyber roles, and cyber careers. The world is moving very quickly in this industry. The technology is changing very quickly, but there are some common skills and capabilities across these 7 personas. So the personas that Deloitte has outlined is defender, scientist, sleuth, hacker, firefighter, strategist, and advisor. 3 of these roles are in particularly high demand: the scientist, the strategist, and the advisor. And you may notice one thing that these roles have in common. Typically, they're roles that are held by more experienced professionals, which makes career development really important to make sure that we're growing the skills and capabilities in our workforce that can move into these roles.
And finally, they placed these 7 personas on a wheel and said that jobs that are sitting beside each other on the wheels are jobs that have a lot in common. And in fact, you may be in roles that have a little bit of each persona. So you may be in a role that combines some of the elements of advisor with some of the elements in defender. So it's another way to look at how we are structuring cybersecurity talent and how we're looking at building those skills and capabilities that we need to keep our organizations safe. So I just wanted to present that as a little bit of a framework to help anchor our conversation. And now I want to bring it back to our panelists and have them weigh in and give us some of their thoughts and perspectives. So I'm going to switch mics back to the table. Okay. So as we can see from the 7 personas, lots of different career areas in cybersecurity and lots of interesting skills and capabilities. So I want to start with Camille and Vanessa. There's lots of opportunity, but also lots of complexity. It can be hard to map out a career path. So what advice would you have for current cyber professionals who would like to advance in their career? Let's start with you, Camille.
I always go first. All right.
You're sitting closer to me. If you want to switch seats with Vanessa.
Yeah, I should have been more strategic about it. I think for me, if you're currently in the field, and as you saw, that framework of the 7 personas and the proximity of those personas to each other from a skill set perspective, it's very important to develop yourself in a cross-functional way, because your ability to move between those personas and the functions within a cybersecurity organization is what's going to elevate your skill set over time. And the important part of driving that as a strategy in your career is a effective development plan, and that speaks to mapping out how you see yourself progressing through your career, whether that's laterally or up the ladder, as Brian mentioned earlier. There is value certainly in moving laterally within a security organization. The really key item in an effective and well thought out development plan is the support of your management team, as well as keeping that development plan maintained and up to date. Because as things change in the industry, you want to make sure that you refresh that, as well as acquire skills that are adaptable and applicable to the role that you're in right now, provide value to the organization now and in the future.
So it's not one and done. Let's do a career development plan, put it in the drawer, and pull it back out.
That's right, and I think that's the key. It's a lot of people will take the approach of formulating a development plan at the beginning of the fiscal year when the planning occurs, get their training or conference request approved, and then the development plan is forgotten. I like to review development plans at least twice a year, and that's at a minimum.
Okay. Perfect, thank you. Vanessa, what's your perspective?
Just to add on to Camille's point, aligning yourself with people within the organization and outside of it that you're able to mentor and that are really champions for your own personal development, and being open to criticism from those people, truly open to it. We spend an awful lot of time at work, more than some of us care to, and it is a large part of your life. So we do talk a lot about personal growth outside of the workplace, but career development and career growth is just as integral and just as key. So be open to criticism from people that you value, really take it, really ingest it, set egos aside, and realize that for the most part, that criticism is meant to further your development within your career ladder. I think that's what I would, yeah.
Criticism is a gift. It doesn't always feel like it, but for someone to take the time to share their thoughts is critically important.
It's good to use the word feedback rather than criticism, because criticism has negative connotations to it. But feedback in a constructive way is a gift, yes.
Good catch.
And then in addition, looking at the personas, a lot of the key differentiators in some of those personas are soft skills. I don't have a technical background. I came in through some relatively unorthodox educational channels into cyber. So for me, a lot of my branding was soft skills. So don't undersell them, recognize the importance of them, and highlight them when you are transitioning roles, when you're within your own roles, when you're in performance appraisal time. Highlight those, because those really are a lot of the key differentiators in some of those personas. So.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Let's spend some time talking about a career development plan. MJ, have you used one in your career journey? What's the impact of having one versus not having one?
Yeah, I think it's a great question to think about. And I would first say that think about who you are as a person and what your passions are, and then plan a career development plan around that. It's important to have a plan. I would also say do not be too rigid and hold yourself to that plan. So it's actually talking out of both sides of my mouth. And it's from my experience in that always be thinking one or two jobs ahead of where you want to be, but be very flexible and listen to new opportunities as you are revisiting your development plan, because the world is changing rapidly, and you as a person also change with more experience that you obtain. I would also say that continue to adapt your development plan, and one point I think that Camille made earlier is seek out mentors and management. If you haven't got direct management that's encouraging you to have a strong development plan, seek out mentors who will bring that encouragement and sponsorship to help your career. I think that's one of the most critical elements to having a career plan that will get you where you want to go.
Okay, thank you, MJ. Brian, what's your perspective? Career development plan critical or nice to have?
And my view of that, anything related to plan, one thing is you have to have one, right? So if you don't have a plan, there's somebody will plan for you, right? So, and that plan may or may not suit for your needs. So in essence, everybody is your own CEO, regardless who you work for. So you have to be responsible for yourself. So the plan for yourself definitely needed. So that's one I totally with it. On the other side, and MJ also mentioned, you need to be agile. Things change, right? So you make a plan, I want to be a CISO, but tomorrow, and also understand there's no direct line from the day you have right now to the CISO. You have to probably encounter a lot of changes. So I would say make a plan, but also focus on what's immediately important to you in the next, let's say, 3 months to 6 months, what's most important to you, and really work on that. At the end of the day, plan doesn't work, the action works, right? So you have to take that one. And also I think MJ also mentioned, find a mentor. A lot of times, don't figure out by yourself alone. Come to the event like this and know people in the industry, get the insights from theirs.
Thank you. You've said something that I want to pick up on, which is we have to be our own CEOs. So let's talk about that. Whose role is it anyways? Whose role is it to really lead career development? Is it the organizations? Because after all, they know the skills they need and they know the roles that they're going to have open. So perhaps they're best placed to know where they want to move their employees. Or is it the employee's role? Because after all, they know their own skills, as Brian says. They know where they want to lead their careers and what their interests are. Whose role is it anyway? Vanessa, what do you think?
I mean, I don't think it surprises anyone in this room that it's probably a good 50-50 split. Employees should be driven for a lot of the reasons that Brian listed as well. I mean, you're the captain of your own ship, however you want to put it, whatever cheesy analogy you want to use. So you really should be driving that change forward and highlighting through career development planning, through other means, what you want to do, where you want to be in 6 months, in a year, in 5 years. We kind of get lost in this 5-year kind of career development view, and that can often be too far out. So really within the immediate future, within the soon future, and then farther out. But there also is quite a bit of onus on the employers to ensure that training and to some extent retention Our priorities for the organization are highlighted as priorities for the organization. That's communicated downstream so people do understand this is important to us. And then making those channels easy, accessible, funded, formalized, whatever you can do as part of the organization to really hammer home that it is important.
Okay, thank you, Vanessa. Camille, what do you think?
100% agreed. I have no cheesy analogies to produce as yet. I would
There's
say
still time.
I'm working on it. I think what I would really align this to also is for an organization to clearly communicate and articulate to its staff, especially in a large organization like RBC. This is going to be important. I think young people especially have trouble mapping out a development career path and a plan to associate with that. So providing some strong guidance around a framework that provides input into mapping out what that looks like. I think that's where the organization, and in addition to obviously facilitating the ability to take training, it also leads a little bit into a bit of a selfish perspective in that you're now able to align your workforce to your strategies as a business and as an organization. And in cybersecurity especially, when we look out into the talent shortage, which is nothing new, by the way, the personas that we want to target to enable our strategies, we want to drive people in that direction as well so they develop those skills that we need. And something Vanessa mentioned previously, soft skills, communication skills, leadership skills, those are going to be very key in I think all of those personas.
Okay, so career development is a well-rounded effort. It's not just about acquiring new technical skills, but technical skills is not to be forgotten. And Vanessa, you mentioned that sometimes 5 years can be a little bit too long of a runway because our industry is changing very, very quickly. So let's talk about how we keep current. Brian, what are your thoughts for how cybersecurity
We need more
professionals
microphones.
can keep current in this environment of rapidly changing technology?
So you're already seeing some panel discussion today, right? So those are some industry trends. So one thing you need to come often to those events or the industry leaders, what do they talk about? So you need to kind of sense what's going on in the industry, the latest news, which you also need to watch out those like blogs, videos, all those things. On the other side, for your personal development, you need to always keep yourself current in the field related to you. What I mean is, usually we have a kind of center about what you are doing right now. Doesn't matter you are the developer or you are the compliance person. You probably have your core competencies there. So for those things, you definitely need to know what's latest, because otherwise you cannot speak intelligently. But don't forget, there's something related to this field. For example, AI, for example, that's a technology, right? So AI or blockchain, what kind of impact will cross-domain for your field? What kind of things will change in the next 1 year or 5 years? So those things you also need to pay attention to. Not last but not least, you have to do something, right? So you cannot just learn but do nothing. You have to practice, put your hands a little bit dirty to work on, doesn't matter, it's a programming or do some project.
MJ, how do certifications fit into a career development plan?
So certifications, I'm on the scale of certifications are a good thing, but they're also can be a negative thing. So certifications for certain jobs are a requirement. And I think it's important we carefully select which ones we go after. At the same time, I think in our industry, there are fabulous people out there who have fabulous skills that have no certifications. And I think sometimes our hiring practices are too heavy bent towards the certifications, where if people have certifications but no experience, that's not a good thing either. So I would carefully balance certification planning with hands-on experience. And I would also add, on to that with certifications, what Brian was referring to is continue to make sure you're being educated, not just from a certification standpoint, but be aware of what's going on in the industry. Follow cyber tech and risk. Watch the trends that are being posted there. If you are interested, follow us, the CCTX, on LinkedIn. You're seeing a lot of the trends and changes there. Follow NIST changes, privacy law changes. That's how you'll stay current and soft certified, if you will. So that would be my advice.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm being very mindful of the time. I want to leave adequate time for questions from the group. We ran out a little bit in our keynote speak because Matthew was just so interesting. So I'm gonna ask you one last question, which is, what's the best career advice that you've been given, and can you share that with our audience? Brian, let's start with you, and we'll go right down the line.
I thought Camille always wanted to be the first. And I already shared with you one, you need to be your own CEO. The next one I think I can share with you is you need to cross domains. So you cannot just stick with one domain forever, right? So you need to, at least technical skills, soft skills. Or if you're in compliance, how to automate the compliance process. If you're in the development, what kind of things can impact the development, DevOps, something like that. But also, how do you tell the story? So cross-domain in nowadays is very important.
Thank you, Brian.
Something that aligns with being your own CEO. Take ownership of your career development. That's by far the best piece of advice I was given early on, and was reinforced throughout the years as I moved from organization to organization, because I saw that those large organizations recognize the need for development of professionals internally over the long term for success in transitioning, leadership transitioning, and all that. So that is something that has stuck out for me, and I've been really focused on throughout my career.
Perfect, thank you. Vanessa?
For me, I think I'd say recognize when you feel stalled in your career and understand why. I was in a position a number of years ago, and I did feel quite stalled out, and I had just assumed I needed to put my head down and continue to charge forward. And I met with a good friend of mine who really said to me, have you learned all that you're going to learn in that role? And I had at that point, and I was teetering between two positions, and I was really dragging my feet for some of the wrong reasons, and it took a little bit of introspection to look at the reasons why I wasn't jumping. And when I realized that sometimes there are gaps, and sometimes there are ceilings with positions, and you realize that it's time to take the next step forward and push yourself a bit farther. So just be mindful and be aware.
Great story, and also a great illustration of where a mentor can help, as you've pointed out in a couple of your comments. MJ?
Okay, my comment is a corollary to Vanessa's in that listen carefully when opportunity knocks and be prepared to go outside of your comfort zone. Sometimes it'll come knocking and you'll think, wow, that's a crazy idea, or go and volunteer for something that's completely opposite to where your skills lie. But go and put yourself out there, because you don't know who's watching you and what other opportunities that will spawn. So just be listening, be open. I think set aside the ego was said earlier as well. And when opportunity comes knocking, never say no.
All right, thank you very much. Now we'd like to open it up to the floor. If you've got questions, if there are things you want to ask our panelists, this is your time. Do we have a volunteer? They're going to take my mic.
Thank you very much. So I have a question. It's basically, if we talk about cybersecurity, it's a broad term, and there are a number of subdomains within cybersecurity, like network security, identity and access management, risk management. How do you rank based on the based on the number of growing opportunities? Like, how do you rank these domains? This is one question, and second sub-question is like, if somebody who's new into cybersecurity domain, what do you suggest to know all these domains in detail, or to know everything and to know one specific also? How to move forward, because there are different certification for each domain. Thank you.
I'll just quickly jump in and say you can't know everything. It's impossible, right? So carefully look again at who you are, where your current skills lie, and pick a domain to focus on and become certified in. Also look outside the sort of standard cybersecurity domains. I think privacy is an upcoming merging category, and it will help round you out. But maybe look at taking a generic, the SCCP certification, so that you kind of get a broad brush, and then you'll kind of know what domain you can be an expert in, and then stay abreast of the others.
I think I would echo that comment. CISSP is an interesting certification if we're going to talk about certifications. I personally have always looked at certifications, aside from maybe certifications that you need to save lives, but in cybersecurity, I would look at certifications as a show of your commitment to your profession, not necessarily something that I would see as a prerequisite for a candidate to have. I look at certifications as nice to haves, and they confirm to me that you're committed. CISSP is a great certification because you acquire a breadth of knowledge rather than a depth of knowledge. And you can use that even if you don't get the certification. The study that you put into the domains that cover CISSP can open up your mind to things that maybe you want to focus on. So maybe that's something I would use as a strategy. As regards the priorities or opportunities, I think all domains of cybersecurity right now have an equal opportunity, if you will. I don't think there is one particular domain. I mean, I'm selfish in that in IAM, I've been in that domain for quite some time, and that seems to be a recurring theme, right? 10 years going strong, never enough people, never enough money. So if you're going to pick one, pick IAM.
Not that you're biased.
And I would comment on that one is, instead of thinking about a career, think about you start a company today as a startup. Which domain you pick? So there are so many great ideas, AI, blockchain, and in cybersecurity, CISSP had 8 domains. So which one you pick? You can think about yourself as a starting point, and also pick what is hot in the industry. And there's a risk also associated with each field. And if you really don't know, look at this year. We have from last year to here, cyber tech risk, what kind of topics we talk about. And how do we select those topics? They must be hot. Right, okay.
Other questions?
Hi, my name is Justin. I was just wondering, individually, what would you say was the biggest challenge at the entry of your careers? Like, what was the hardest thing to start off with? Like, were you facing any challenges at the beginning, or like sort of like breaking in, or something around there?
For me, a lot of it was not getting lost in the sea of faces. Obviously, you start at an entry-level position for some of us, and you're part of a much larger pool at that level. So a lot of it was, how do I differentiate myself as a candidate for either any movement, either lateral or up? And part of that was, I'm a millennial, so I needed to find myself. There was a little bit of needing to find myself and understand what my brand was going to be in order to set myself apart from the pack. And for me, that was relationship building and inner/interpersonal skills. I'm a relatively fun person, and people like working with me. So I ran with that. But it was figuring out what's my strong suit, what's my weakness, and how do I use that to move to the next stage and set myself apart. That was a big challenge for me. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll grab this next then. I would say when you're starting out in your career, network. It's absolutely key. It helps push yourself out of your comfort zone. Go talk to as many people in the organization and externally as well as possible, so that you pick up all kinds of different nuances of guidance, and then you can sift through what you want to pick up and drop. But I think it's absolutely crystal critical that you get out of the one department that you're working within to build out your relationship skills as complementary to what Vanessa was saying, and also just continuous learning from other people.
What I saw when I came out of school, and Vanessa started working when she was 12, I started working when I was 10. So early on, I think the being lost in the sea of faces, what I think helped me personally, and I've seen this also now that I'm in leadership positions, we have co-op students that come and join us for terms where they complete co-op terms with us. And that's something I used as well when I was coming out of school, again, when I was 10. That was, I think, a good entry point into the industry, getting to know people early on, and also exploring things. So we have people who, I talk with people who took a degree in economics, and then they picked up a co-op term in cybersecurity, working as a QA analyst or a business analyst, and they love the opportunity, they love the experience that this brings, and they switch fields completely. So I think that's one strategy that I would advise young people. Also, if you are thinking about changing careers, that might be a good way to open things up a little bit. Pick up an internship, take a little bit of a risk.
I think, back to your question, I think the number one challenge for new graduate people relatively junior is experience. You will ask this question a lot by the recruiter. Do you have a 1, 2, 3 years experience in ethical hacking, in whatever, vulnerability management, whatever? I am. And how do you answer that question? And I don't have experience. Where can I get that experience? So this is probably your largest, biggest challenge you are facing. And I actually admire many students today. You are taking actions. What you come today is join the cybersecurity higher education contest. You gain the experience from there. And think about anywhere you can find those things, the practical things you can do to gain that experience. And don't just think, okay, because I don't have a job, I don't have experience. There are so many opportunities you can gain that experience. Volunteering, join a contest, join the hackathon. Find some, even your work, right? So there's a lot of kind of opportunity. If you don't think about cybersecurity, probably just, that's other people's job. Now, if you're really interested about cybersecurity, can I volunteer or participate in certain project to gain that precious experience? Then you can put to your resume. Then you can impress the recruiter.
I just have a quick question for Brian. You mentioned the importance of gaining experience in multiple domains. As an upcoming graduate, do you think it'd be more beneficial to join like a large organization with very siloed teams, or maybe a smaller team where everyone does a bit of everything?
I thought that's a Camille's question or Vanessa's question, but I quickly
Join RBC.
Yeah, so I think since we're in RBC space, to cross domains, it's difficult because people like it. I want to have my background as a development. I have a project management. I have a business analysis. When I look at things, I can draw from different perspectives. That's great. But as a new graduate or young people, how do you get these things in your early stage? I would say do some project, end-to-end project. The project will incorporate a lot of those elements together. So not just the technical, but how do you work with the team? How do you set up a goal? For example, today's cybersecurity higher education contest, that's a project. How do you put together a business pitch to the judges and win the trophy? So that's cross domains and learn from different people.
Again, I'm watching our time, and I'm sorry, I think we do have to close it down so that we don't steal time from the next presentation. I want to thank all of our panelists for your thoughts and your perspectives today. You've done great.